Friday the 21st of April 2023, and I'm on the PCT here at about mile 184.9, the top of the Seven Pines Trail. That's the PCT southbound behind me, and this sign here showing the top of the Seven Pines Trail has reappeared. I passed by this a week ago and it wasn't visible. So that shows we've lost probably 10 to 12 inches of snow even here, which is not a particularly sun-exposed spot. We're at about 8,700 feet here, something like that. And I'm going to head northbound on the PCT. The track you can see is there. This is indicative of the kind of problems it could have because the PCT actually goes that way. But I came down the track a few days ago and I know that ultimately it ends up in the right place. So I'm going to follow the track and we're going to head across Fuller Ridge Trail and see what that's like through to about PCT mile 191. So this is pretty typical of this section of Deer Springs Trail. Currently at about mile 185.1. Pretty relatively lightly travelled, fairly uneven, not quite post-holing track, but pretty uneven. I should have mentioned this is a little before 7 o'clock in the morning, so at this elevation, even on a relatively mild day, the snow is pretty firm and icy. So the going's fairly easy. I started at 6,300 feet before first light. It was about 40 degrees at home, and it was fairly soft and post-holing in the patchy snow below about 7,500. Certainly below 8,000, and then got firmer higher up. So we're coming up to the southern end of Fuller Ridge Trail. Now, for the sake of argument, we're going to call this mile 185.5. Gratified to see that the signs that were put up in 2021 managed to just about stay above the snow. They're typically about 6 to 7 feet off the ground. Last week the snow was close to the bottom of them, just about stayed above the snow. This winter the old state park sign is down there somewhere, buried under 4 or 5 feet of snow. So the PCT heads off this way. I'm going to follow the track, even though in places it doesn't necessarily actually follow the route of the PCT, but I recommend people follow the track. The trail up to San Jacinto Peak goes that way, and so we will head north on Fuller Ridge, which has an ominous reputation, but is actually one of my probably one of the 2 or 3 favorite on-trail hikes in the San Jacinto Mountains. So this is where PCTers have been descending down Upper Deer Springs Trail, coming down from San Jacinto Peak to hook into the Fuller Ridge Trail. Not a great track, very steep. So still pretty early on, getting close to about 186. Good track, not particularly heavily travelled. Relatively consequential terrain. Maybe only about a 20-degree slope, something like that, but still it's solid and icy this morning, which personally I prefer, but does mean you're going to fall further if you fall. San Bernardino Mountains there to the northwest, and off to the west-northwest San Gabriel Mountains, and due west out there LA hidden in the smog somewhere. Okay, we're at about 186.1, getting close to, or right where the North Fork of the San Jacinto River crosses the Fuller Ridge Trail. Rather more consequential terrain here. Steeper slope, pushing, well, in places 30, maybe even 35, 40 degree angle in spots. I can see from the tracks people are using spikes, micro spikes. Looks like in a few places I can see tracks of crampons. Good terrain for something like the trail crampons, Catulas. Certainly Catula micro spikes at the very least recommended through here. So the river runs underneath us here, and by the looks of things it's going to be weeks, possibly many weeks, before that is apparent. Okay, this is what I was talking about, where the track does not follow the trail. Trail's down below there, and got a fairly unpleasant descent past these rocks before swinging around to the north again. Certainly not for everybody. So holding my phone coming down that was not the best idea, so I put it away. You could probably see, looks like one or two people may have slipped a little bit. So we'll see how much more of that there is up ahead. Again at about 186.5, hit one of these pieces where it was clear that the trail was far below the track, so then the track takes a fairly substantial descent. Not too bad this time of day when it's pretty firm and the steps are solid. Later in the day when it warms up, certainly will be more prone to slippage. This is the fairly well-known backcountry camping spot at about 186.5. The normal campsites are tucked in there, deep under, looks like sort of 3 to 4 feet of snow at the moment. Coming through around 187, there's a decent section that's more or less actually following the trail and is on generally more benign terrain before we climb up and over onto the top of the ridge and then do some descending. So getting close to about 187.5, and a couple of 1 or 2 tenths of a mile ago I realised that what seemed like the main track was heading off into some rocks. Now with the melting that we've been having in recent weeks, the original track through is probably starting to disappear, so I headed straight up the slope following 1 or 2 minor sets of tracks and actually found a little piece of the PCT, actual piece of dirt trail starting to open up. But fortunately, a few people have gone through and there is a track to follow. So I guess the point there is it's not a case of blindly just following what seems to be the main track. There is a certain degree of navigation involved as well. So we're on top of the ridge, about 187.6 or 0.7. Came through the little saddle. There's usually a yellow topped PCT pole post. I usually call it about 187.5. That was deeply buried, so that indicates there's probably a good 5+ feet of snow in that area. Again, basically try and follow the track that's on top of the ridge at this point, but navigation is not entirely intuitive because the different PCTers have split off on different tracks. So cautious navigation, I guess, is the name of the game. Okay, here at about 187.7, one track goes down and then turns to the left. This track stays on the ridge going left. Neither of them are on the PCT. PCT's off over that way somewhere. Personally, I'm going to stay high and keep on the ridge because that's closer to the trail for now. My suspicion is they merge again a little bit further down, but it's indicative of the kind of navigational issues. They both look roughly equally travelled. Another short descending piece, and again looks like people have taken hopefully controlled little slides rather than accidental ones. And getting close to 188, sort of steeply emerge from the trail that's up on the snowy ridge and actually find a little piece of the PCT again. The challenge is going to be over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks when the sections of trail that are not, sorry, the sections of track that are nowhere near the trail all start melting off and suddenly just go through a whole bunch of rocks and bushes and so on. And then it's actually going to be, in some ways, even trickier to follow than when it's just a track on top of snow. Looks like some new pieces of tree down in the trail there. This section's pretty sun exposed and obviously a few bare patches starting to open up. On the section that's about between about 188 and 188.5, this is on the south side of Castle Rock, so it's pretty sun exposed. So as you can see, it's kind of a mix of snow cover's probably only about, may only be sort of 40 to 50%. But it's pretty, the drifts are deep, so as you can see you're going up and over these quite substantial drifts, nice and hard and icy right now, and then there are bare patches before hitting the next patch of drift. So this is fairly straightforward, but again still need some careful navigation because there are quite a lot of little switchbacks through this piece. And they of course tend to be where the drifts are, so it's sort of easy to lose track, literally and figuratively. So back up to the ridge, track down there below me. This is about mile 188.5. One of my personal favourite vistas of the San Jacinto High Country, looking at the northwest flank of Folly Peak there. Great to see all the chutes nice and packed with snow and ice. And PCT continues on behind me here, heading on to the north. Just after leaving mile 188.5, the trail flips around onto the north side of the ridge. So again, continuous snow and pretty firm. And unfortunately the track takes a long, steep descent. Evidence of a bit of slipping and sliding, pretty steppy. It's very much a northbounders track, very much downhill. And this is just the easy part at the end of the long descent. Getting close to mile 190. The last mile and a half have been largely like this kind of undulating traverse on the north side of Fuller Ridge, pretty heavily forested. Those two things in combination, the aspect and the forest, means that it's going to take a long time to melt off. Certainly typically 3-4 places, maybe 5 feet deep, and that's going to take months, weeks, certainly well into May, probably in places into June, for this to clear out. I've hiked this multiple times every March, April, May for the past decade, and this is the first time in the second half of April I haven't seen a single person on Fuller Ridge. I haven't seen anyone all morning so far, so that gives an indication of how few people are out here, and at a certain level that's a positive, in that I interpret that as folks making good decisions for themselves as to what they're most comfortable with. This certainly, Fuller Ridge at the moment is certainly not for everybody. It's probably not the best option for the majority of hikers right now. It requires spikes at an absolute minimum, and also at a minimum a pretty high comfort level on angled icy snow and navigating in melting off snow, which is getting more complicated, at least in places over the top of the ridge. I have seen at least half a dozen spots where people have clearly had moderate minor falls, so that suggests that an ice axe is probably useful for those who are comfortable carrying one and know what they're doing with it and are willing to get it out when they need it, which you could use that for most of Fuller Ridge at the moment. It's only about 9:30 now, and I can already feel the upper half-inch to inch of snow is getting soft, glistening, kind of getting a little wet. Spikes don't always grip particularly well in that, and trail crampons, some sort of lightweight crampon might be a better idea, as long as you have the right sort of footwear to attach that to. And reaching the Fuller Ridge campground. Again, the sign managed to stay above the snow. PCT sign has finally emerged above the snow. And trail pushes on across through the area that is the campground. The couple of picnic benches that normally live in there are still completely covered with snow. And the Fuller Ridge section isn't really complete until you make it back out to Black Mountain Road here at about mile 191, and this is where the big descent starts all the way down to Interstate 10 and the village of Snow Creek. Well, hopefully that's given everyone a reasonable idea of the current conditions on the Fuller Ridge section, roughly 185 through to about 191 on the PCT. And just the last thing, thank you very much to those who've supported the trail report through this obviously very challenging winter and first half of the PCT season. This YouTube channel isn't monetized, so the work of the trail report's completely volunteer, and I'm super grateful to everyone who donates. There's a link to the donate page on the website in the video notes, and also at the bottom of the screen at the moment, and your support is really appreciated. And it's a beautiful day in the Sanderson Mountains, and safe hiking everyone.